What if a 1-cent penny from 1980 could actually be worth as much as $70,900?
Most 1980 pennies are ordinary coins, but rare mint errors can turn a simple Lincoln cent into an incredible collector's treasure. The first coin in today's video is the 1980 US Lincoln 1-cent error coin, with a potential value range of $20,650 to $70,900, depending on the specific error, rarity, condition, and authentication. When the 1980 Lincoln cent was released, nobody expected an ordinary penny to become a major collectible decades later. Millions of these coins entered circulation across the United States. They passed through grocery stores, banks, restaurants, vending machines, cash registers, and pockets every day. Most eventually became worn and forgotten. But a small number experienced unusual mistakes during the minting process, and those examples are exactly what modern error coin collectors want to discover. The Lincoln cent has one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. The obverse features the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, facing right. Above his portrait is the inscription, "In God We Trust." To the left appears Liberty, while the date 1980 is positioned on the right. Depending on where the coin was produced, a mint mark may appear beneath the date. Philadelphia cents traditionally carried no mint mark, while Denver examples carried a small d. Because this script focuses specifically on the 1980 Lincoln cent, collectors should examine the date area carefully and identify the exact mint origin before evaluating an unusual example. The reverse of the 1980 penny features the famous Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Above the building are the words United States of America, while 1 cent appears below. The Latin phrase E pluribus unum is positioned above the memorial. A normal 1980 Lincoln cent weighs approximately 3.11 grams and measures about 19.05 millimeters in diameter. Unlike later Lincoln cents made primarily with zinc, the 1980 penny was produced from a bronze composition containing mostly copper, with smaller amounts of tin and zinc. This difference is important because weight and composition can help collectors identify unusual pieces. Every Lincoln cent begins as a metal blank known as a planchet. The blank is prepared to exact specifications before entering a powerful coin press. Inside the press, engraved dies strike the planchet with tremendous force. In a fraction of a second, the portrait, lettering, date, and reverse design are transferred onto the metal. The process is carefully controlled, but mechanical problems can occasionally create errors. When one of those mistakes survives inspection and reaches circulation, the resulting coin can become much more interesting than an ordinary penny. One of the most dramatic errors collectors search for is an off-center strike. This happens when the planchet is not properly positioned between the dies when the press strikes. Instead of receiving the complete design in the center, the image is shifted toward one side. A blank crescent-shaped area may remain visible along the edge. The greater the degree of displacement, the more dramatic the error can become. Examples where the date remains clearly visible are particularly useful because collectors can immediately identify the coin. Another important category is the doubled die error. A doubled die is created during the production of the die itself rather than during the actual strike. If the die receives a slightly misaligned impression, certain design elements can appear doubled on coins struck from that die. Collectors examine areas such as Liberty, the date, In God We Trust, and details around Lincoln's portrait. The key is distinguishing genuine doubling from ordinary machine doubling or damage. Genuine doubled die characteristics generally show specific shapes and locations that experienced collectors can identify under magnification. Another fascinating error is the die crack. Coin dies experience enormous pressure during production. After striking thousands of coins, the hardened steel can develop small fractures. When metal flows into those fractures during striking, raised lines appear on the finished penny. Some die cracks are tiny and barely noticeable. Others can travel across Lincoln's portrait or extend through the Lincoln Memorial. A large, distinctive die crack can make an otherwise ordinary 1980 cent considerably more interesting to collectors. There are also grease-filled die errors. During the minting process, grease, oil, or other debris can accumulate inside recessed portions of a die. When a coin is struck, those filled areas may prevent portions of the design from transferring correctly. As a result, letters can appear weak, numbers may seem incomplete, or sections of the design can look unusually smooth. These errors are often subtle, so collectors need magnification and careful comparison with normal examples. Another desirable category is the clipped planchet error. Before a penny is struck, the metal sheet is punched into individual blanks. If the punching process goes wrong and overlaps a previous hole, part of the next blank can be missing. The resulting penny may have a distinctive curved section missing from its edge. Because the missing area was created before striking, the design and rim often follow the altered shape. This characteristic helps distinguish a genuine clipped planchet from damage that occurred after the coin entered circulation. Broad strike errors are another possibility. Normally, a collar surrounds the planchet during striking and helps control the coin's final diameter and rim. If the collar fails to function properly, the metal can spread outward. The resulting penny may appear wider than normal, with an unusual rim or distorted edge. The difference can be immediately visible when the coin is compared with an ordinary 1980 Lincoln cent. Perhaps some of the most exciting discoveries involve wrong planchet errors. A Lincoln cent design can theoretically be struck on a blank intended for another denomination. Such a mistake can create a coin with an unusual weight, diameter, thickness, or metallic appearance. Because this type of error requires a significant production mix-up, genuine examples are extremely interesting to collectors. Another unusual possibility is a die clash. This occurs when the obverse and reverse dies accidentally strike each other without a planchet between them. The impact can transfer portions of one design onto the opposing die. Later coins struck with those dies may display unexpected details in areas where they do not normally belong. Collectors often use magnification to identify these unusual characteristics. However, one of the most important things to remember is that not every unusual-looking penny is valuable. Coins can become damaged after leaving the mint. Scratches, dents, chemical exposure, polishing, grinding, artificial coloring, and other forms of post-mint damage can create appearances that initially seem like errors. That is why authentication is extremely important when a coin appears unusually valuable. Condition also plays a major role. A heavily circulated 1980 penny may have scratches, worn lettering, dark surfaces, and contact marks. By contrast, an error coin with sharp details, strong original surfaces, and minimal circulation can attract considerably more attention. For an exceptional example, professional grading and authentication can help establish the coin's identity, condition, and legitimacy. The 1980 Lincoln cent error coin is especially fascinating because it combines an iconic American design with the possibility of a rare production mistake. Depending on the exact error, scarcity, condition, and collector demand, the value range discussed for exceptional examples can reach approximately $20,650 to $70,900. That does not mean every 1980 penny is worth thousands of dollars. Most are ordinary circulated coins. The real value comes from finding a genuine, rare, and clearly identifiable mint error. And that is what makes searching old pennies so exciting. A coin that looks completely ordinary at first glance may reveal something unusual under magnification. A strange date, an unexpected design shift, an abnormal edge, a missing detail, or an unusual weight could be the clue that separates a normal penny from a remarkable numismatic discovery. The 1980 U.S. Lincoln 1-cent penny reminds collectors that valuable coins are not always ancient or made from precious metals. Sometimes, the most exciting discoveries are hiding in the smallest denominations. So before spending that old penny or throwing it into a jar, take another look. Check the date, inspect the surfaces, examine the edges, compare the weight, and most importantly, learn what a genuine mint error should look like. Because somewhere among ordinary Lincoln cents, there may still be an unusual 1980 example waiting to be discovered, and for the right collector, the tiny 1-cent coin could become an extraordinary piece of American numismatic history. What if a penny you found in your change could secretly be worth more than $82,000? The 1998 Lincoln cent looks ordinary, but a genuine mint error could transform this tiny coin into an extraordinary collector's prize. The second coin in today's video is the 1998 U.S. Lincoln 1-cent error coin, with a potential value range of $26,200 to $82,450, depending on the specific error, rarity, condition, and authentication. When the 1998 Lincoln cent entered circulation, it was simply another 1-cent coin used throughout the United States. Millions were carried in pockets, placed in cash registers, dropped into vending machines, and stored inside household coin jars. Nobody spending one at the time could have known that some examples would eventually attract serious attention from collectors. The Lincoln cent has been part of American history since 1909. Its obverse features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing right. Above the portrait appears "In God We Trust," while Liberty is positioned to the left and the date 1998 appears on the right. The presence or absence of a mint mark helps identify where the coin was produced. Philadelphia cents traditionally have no mint mark, while Denver examples carry a small D below the date. For collectors, identifying the exact mint is one of the first steps when researching a potentially valuable Lincoln cent. The reverse of the 1998 penny features the Lincoln Memorial, which appeared on the cent beginning in 1959. Above the memorial are the words "United States of America," while 1 cent appears below. The Latin phrase "E pluribus unum" is positioned above the memorial. A normal 1998 Lincoln cent weighs approximately 2.50 grams and measures about 19.05 millimeters in diameter. By this period, the traditional bronze composition had been replaced by a zinc core covered with a thin copper layer. That composition makes weight an important diagnostic tool for collectors. If a supposedly normal 1998 penny weighs significantly more or less than expected, it may deserve closer examination. The journey of every Lincoln cent begins with a smooth metal blank called a planchet. The planchet is prepared to precise specifications and then fed into a high-speed coining press. Inside the press, powerful steel dies strike the blank with tremendous force, transferring the obverse and reverse designs onto the metal. Most strikes are produced exactly as intended. But occasional mechanical problems, alignment issues, die damage, or production mix-ups can create unusual coins. One of the most dramatic possibilities is an off-center strike. An off-center error occurs when the planchet is not correctly positioned between the dies at the moment of striking. Instead of appearing centered, Lincoln's portrait or the reverse design is shifted toward one side. A significant off-center strike may leave a large blank crescent-shaped section along the edge. Collectors generally prefer examples where the date remains visible because the coin can still be easily identified. Another important category is the doubled die error. This type of error begins during die production. If a die receives multiple impressions that are not perfectly aligned, portions of the resulting design may appear doubled. On a Lincoln cent, collectors carefully examine the date, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and other lettering. Strong, clearly defined doubling can make a coin considerably more desirable. However, collectors must be careful because not every appearance of doubling is a genuine doubled die. Mechanical or strike-related effects can create weaker forms of apparent doubling that generally do not carry the same premium. Another fascinating error is the die crack. Coin dies operate under enormous pressure. After producing thousands of coins, a die can develop cracks. When the planchet is struck, metal flows into the damaged area and creates a raised line on the finished coin. Some cracks are tiny, while others can extend across large sections of Lincoln's portrait or the Lincoln Memorial. These varieties can become especially interesting when the crack is large, dramatic, and clearly visible. Grease-filled die errors provide another example of how small problems during production can change a coin's appearance. Grease, oil, or debris can accumulate inside recessed sections of a die. When a planchet is struck, those blocked areas may fail to transfer their details properly. The result can be weak lettering, missing portions of numbers, or smooth areas where details should normally appear. Another valuable category is the clipped planchet error. Before coins are struck, large metal sheets are punched to create individual planchets. If the punching process overlaps another hole, a portion of the next blank can be missing. When that blank is eventually struck, the finished penny can display a curved missing section along its edge. The design often follows the altered shape, helping collectors distinguish a genuine mint-made clip from damage caused after circulation. A broad strike error can also create an unusual-looking Lincoln cent. Normally, the planchet is held inside a collar during striking. If the collar fails to function correctly, the metal can spread outward. The finished coin may be wider than normal and have an unusual or incomplete rim.
Because the shape is visibly different from a normal penny, broad strike examples can attract collector interest. One of the most intriguing possibilities is a wrong planchet error. This occurs when a coin design is struck onto a blank intended for another denomination. A genuine wrong planchet Lincoln cent can have an unusual weight, diameter, thickness, or metallic appearance.
Such errors are particularly fascinating because they require a major production mix-up before the coin ever leaves the mint. Collectors also encounter die clash errors, created when the obverse and reverse dies accidentally strike one another without a planchet between them. That collision can transfer portions of one design onto the opposite die. Later coins struck with the damaged dies may show unexpected design elements in unusual locations. But before assuming a 1998 penny is rare, collectors must distinguish mint errors from ordinary damage. Scratches, dents, chemical exposure, polishing, grinding, and other post-mint alterations can create unusual appearances that have nothing to do with the manufacturing process. Authentication becomes particularly important when a coin appears to have a valuable error.
Condition is another major factor.
A heavily circulated 1998 penny may show scratches, worn details, and dull surfaces. A coin with brilliant original luster, sharp lettering, and minimal circulation marks can be significantly more desirable.
Professional grading services can examine the coin, authenticate the error, and assign a condition grade. For exceptional examples, certification can give collectors greater confidence and can influence the price the coin receives in the marketplace. The 1998 Lincoln cent error coin demonstrates why modern pennies should not automatically be dismissed as worthless. The value range discussed for exceptional examples is approximately $26,200 to $82,450, depending heavily on the exact error, rarity, condition, and authentication. Of course, the vast majority of 1998 Lincoln cents are worth only their face value. The extraordinary values belong to unusual, genuinely rare examples with characteristics that collectors can verify. And that is exactly what makes searching through old pennies so exciting. A small coin sitting unnoticed inside an old jar could contain a production mistake created decades ago at the mint. A shifted design, unusual weight, missing detail, doubled lettering, or strange edge could be the first clue that you have found something special. The 1998 U.S. Lincoln 1-cent penny may look like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but for collectors, every coin has a story, and occasionally, one tiny penny carries a mistake rare enough to become a remarkable piece of American numismatic history.